Now I'm going to welcome the next panel. It's my very honor to welcome on stage Bruno Bonnel, the General Secretary of France 2030. Please, Bruno, welcome. Welcome on stage Shiva Dusta from the European Investment Bank, the world's largest climate bank of the European Union. And please, warm welcome to Michael Nordlander from Vattenfall, a company aiming to move fossil fuel. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you. So we are here to discuss about the future of Europe. So I'm going to start by asking you one question that is on everybody's mouth, or lips, as we say in English. I don't really know the expression. So maybe, Bruno, you want to start. What is your view on Europe leadership in this current context?
Well, we're living, good evening, everyone. We're living in a very strange world right now where the European leadership used to be economical power in a very wide open world where competition was basically about product, with an understanding that the ethical values of business was pretty much even though with China we had some tension. Right now, with the attitude of the US especially, everything has been totally moved upside down, and the leadership in Europe is probably more about values now than about products. Meaning that between a world on the Western front where deregulation is at any cost, the famous drill, right? And a world where AI and productivity is going to be really obsession of China. We kind of squeeze in the middle right now. And if we want to emerge from this, it's going to be very important to repeat that the values with an S, and not just the value of what we produce, is going to be critical for the consumer to really distinguish between right and wrong and make the proper decision. So leadership is really about values for me.
I'm going to talk about it later because I don't know if the world is right or wrong. It's going to be challenging. Maybe, Shiva, you want to share your perspective representing also this very important bank for Europe.
Indeed, absolutely. And I would like to build on what Bruno just said. I would say our leadership, the EU leadership, is not only based now on values, but actually putting really the money to where our values are. And I think this is coming from the perspective also of, indeed, the Bank of the European Union, the European Investment Bank, which I think has even a more important role.
This is happening
to
right now.
ensure, absolutely, that we are doubling down on our and stay committed to our climate objectives. So you may have heard of the EIB as the EU Climate Bank, and we are very much committed to remain the climate bank. But of course, there are other priorities that the EU needs to support, such as innovation, digitalization, national security, and all of those need to be obviously as part of a wider package so that we actually can...
Okay, so I see your confidence in Europe putting money where our mouth is. Michael, what's your opinion on current situation?
While representing the industry, it's very interesting times to try to do business and take decisions in some sort of direction. However, even though there is an increased focus on security and resilience, it doesn't stand really in contrast with the need to handle the climate and competitiveness. I mean, the one thing we know for sure that bridges these three is the energy. And energy today, based mainly on imported fossil energy, we know that we're not competitive there. So basically our view is that the only chance is to stick to the still leading position that Europe has in their ambitions and keep to that. Because what we see as an energy company now is that the industry in their transition plan, one of the biggest fear we hear from them is that the EU will start to hesitate on the direction.
Okay, well, we may think that Europe be in a quite good position in regards to energy. We're going to discuss that. And maybe Shiva or Bruno, the question that everybody's wondering here in the room is on which field, which area EU is competitive, and how can we bring value to the world, if I may say.
Well, I can certainly start. I mean, we are here. It's not a coincidence that change now started here in Europe, in Paris. And I think on climate technologies, we have had a leadership. It was maybe challenged the last few years because there was, of course, and that was good to have a US administration, with the IRA to put a lot of emphasis. But that climate technology leadership, we need to now really go and further nurture, meaning we have those technologies that have gotten some financing early on to be started up. They need to be scaled up, and they need to be scaled up quickly.
And you did, if I remember correctly, the first green bonds, and now everybody's doing it, but you're really inventing new financial mechanism to serve this innovation. What are you the most proud of?
I think what I'm most proud of, and I think generally the EIB can be most proud of, is that it has always found innovative solutions. I mean, ultimately, in order to finance innovation, you need to continually also innovate the way you finance. And I think here, for those in the crowd who are not aware of all our financial products that are actually allowing companies in early stages of getting patient capital that is coming in before commercial banks come in, that stays longer, that de-risks and crowds in private capital. You are missing out. If you have not heard of those, please do reach out to us. Not only do we have the financing, we also have the advisory services that are providing you guidance on how to best tap into those financial instruments.
So who are basically your clients, or who do you serve? So it's early stage company?
We serve basically companies of all stages, but we do it in different ways. The earlier stage companies, they very often get supported through the funds. You may have heard of the European Investment Fund, who invests as an LP into funds. They are closer to the market, they can do those investments. As companies move into the sort of scale-up phase around Series C, they can get access to EIB's venture debt products, which can be very attractive to scale up their technologies and to basically then find a pathway to commercial banks.
Are they countries where you invest more than others?
What was that?
Are they countries in Europe where you invest more than others?
Well, I mean, I think our aim is to really invest across the board, and that is, I would say,
that's
balance. And thankfully, in Europe, we see innovation coming from all the various member states. But of course, there are some that are maybe ahead on clean technologies, others on biotech. But I think there is the distribution is quite broad.
Clean tech. Can you share with us your situation?
Yeah, I mean, what you say, Shiva, is that it brings the risks down for the industry, which is an essential thing in scale-up. What we also, I think, have a leading position in still in some cases is the way we can innovate together, the atmosphere for that we have.
Being state-owned helps you?
Not necessarily in itself, but the way we now join forces along the value chains and try to form new projects. I mean, one really concrete example is that we are, in fact, right now, globally leading in Europe when it comes to the transition of the steel sector. We are the only ones who have produced fossil-free steel in Europe so far. And we have been doing that in pilot scale now for a couple of years, and is exactly about to scale up. So this discussion about how to finance that and the role of the public and private is really now essential and crucial to succeed in scale up.
Private-public partnership. So Bruno, I've always had a question. If I had, I think it's 54 billion, right? 54 billion. If you had 54 billion to invest, build better futures, what would you do?
Well, what I'm doing, what my team is doing, You asked a question about where Europe could take some leadership, right? You have, in this current situation where everything is changing, you have two attitudes from a country perspective. You have the attitude number one, you try to go back in the past. That's what US is doing by an obsessive, an obsession on more cars, more and more and more. Or you have to go for the word better rather than more. So concretely, we're looking for what we call the new frontiers. New frontier are life science. So we put a lot of money in life science, including agriculture and health. We're going really big on decarbonization of the industry, meaning that we can produce with a better way of doing it. 50% of the 54 billion is concretely invested in ventures and in projects for decarbonization of
But
the
is it, do you invest in projects, so in startups, or do you help also big corporates?
It's about 60% startups
Okay.
or small companies. It's about 20% big companies, and the rest is institutions. Because
Okay.
another big investment that we make now, which I believe is the most important, is the education. We spent 2 billion euros so far in setting up 160 new education centers across the country in hydrogen, nuclear, new agriculture.
Education for kids or adults?
No.
or-
Education for everything from early education up to masters or PhDs. Because I believe the biggest strength of Europe moving forwards will be the talents. So having a lot of money on the table for talents is key for this leadership that you're mentioning right now, because they're kind of reinventing the way we do things. And we need to have those kind of positive viruses into the companies for the future.
That is so true. We cannot build on yesterday's logic, so we need to build new ways to look at things. And question to you, because we know that it is not so easy. The three of you are changing the system and dream big and act big. When I say act big, it's at that scale, because you're changing the system. What is the biggest challenge you had to overcome to really make the impact and the shift happen?
Let me start, maybe. Ladies first. I would say mindset change, because as Bruno is saying, there is, especially in a situation like this, a tendency to go to your comfort zone, to your, to what you know. And I think the challenge really is, as you're rightly putting it, to actually ensure that you do look to, indeed, that with the mindset is, we have an opportunity here to step out of our comfort zone and go the extra mile into new things, where indeed, if I think of what is happening in the US, the assault on universities, their most prestigious universities, well, Europe, we can actually attract, first of all our European students who are out there in the US, please have them come back and help. The startups should stay in Europe. We should ensure that they get all the support and really make sure that we are in creating, and I'm seeing also some of the colleagues are working towards that, we make sure that Europe is actually really a single market. So it's not 27 markets, but that our companies, our universities get the full benefit of the 450 million inhabitants.
Together as Europe, and this mindset shift to go to the extra mile. Thank you, Shiva.
I think it's fairly easy to agree on long term where we're heading. Short term is going to be bumpy. We basically have to choose in between inconvenient choices. We could be better in using Europe's different strengths. For example, as France have vast amounts of renewable and fossil-free electricity, so has Sweden. What we can do is to, as contribution to the EU, is to go before and use the surplus energy. It sounds ridiculous, but our biggest problem right now is that we have a huge surplus of renewable energy in northern Sweden, which is artificially lower than market prices, more or less. So we cannot long enough for decarbonization projects to come there. And then, of course, the internal market and utilizing that and stimulating demand.
So what
we
does
stay
it
on
take,
course.
Michael, to shift the model? One word.
One word. Oh, failed already. Sorry. No, but... Oh, I'll let you use the time.
Thank you, Michael. You ask what was the biggest challenge? Management of time. I think that with the pressure, I would say the 20th century had the pressure of almost like the quarterly result for many companies. Right now it's a little more flexible, but still people want a quick return, especially the private investors, when we're talking about changing things for generations. And when you do such changes, you have to really help people to understand the timing of it. Some of the projects we're financing today won't be made sure probably before another 10, if not 15, if not 20 years. I'm talking here about, for instance, nuclear fusion, which is probably an interesting energy resource for the future, but still in R&D and far from being commercially viable.
This is why you're here, both of you, because we need you to help the courageous leaders of the world to manage time.
Time
because
is
it's
key.
Complex and it's a paradox there for sure.
And time is on our side.
Yes.
Remember.
Michael,
Yes.
do you want to go about, so I'm going to ask you another question to give you. So we have here an incredible crowd of change makers ready to, as you saw at the very beginning, we're ready to stand up for Europe as a wake-up call. So what is this called, your call to action to everyone in the audience?
I mean, stay the course. I mean, we cannot really wobble now. This is the time where we need to stay the course long term for a transition. And honestly, the faster the better, I would say.
Thank you, Michael.
I would say take advantage of all the EU financing that is available, that many of which you may not be aware of. So please take advantage, reach out to us and scale and grow and be ambitious.
And Shiva will be available right after this panel, so you can get the contact details directly.
Well, I would say keep the faith, meaning that we have all the reason to stop the process of changing, the rationality of the money, the habits, the routines, the way we do things today. But keeping the faith that another world is possible is going to be a key element of everyone that really wants to make it happen. So it's on purpose that I keep the faith, because sometimes it's something that you can't really define, but it's a deep conviction. And we know that we are in a transformation right now, I would say even a metamorphosis. And we go from this fossil caterpillar to this electric butterfly. So it takes time to learn to fly.
It takes time to learn to fly. And may I build on your 3 points, is that I believe that in this moment, you can choose courage or you can choose comforts, but you cannot choose both. So it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.